Today we have to start from first aid. Is 63. We have to start from first aid today. So turn on your camera, students. Listen carefully. G. What is meant by first aid? First aid means the on-the-spot immediate medical help which we can give to anyone without taking him to the hospital. Means before taking him to the hospital, the immediate, the on-the-spot help which we give to any person is called first aid. So first aid is basically, aid means help. So first help means it's the on the spot first help which we can give to any person if he needs some help, medical help, before taking him to the hospital. For example, if an accident takes place, so firstly the paramedic staff, the ambulance staff which came to take him to the hospital, before taking him to the hospital they gave him right away over there treatment. Okay, first treatment. So that treatment which the patient gets at first, it's called first aid. So you one of you can read, Dua or Mari, you can raise your hands who wants to read this paragraph, first aid. Ji, okay Marich, you can read.
Miss, page number
Beta, page number is 63.
63.
Ji, first aid.
In spite of all care being taken to avoid accidents, they still do occur often. Patients, often patients suffering serious injuries are saved because of the immediate help they receive before they can be taken to hospital. This on-the-spot immediate medical help is called first aid. Very
Underline
often,
this on the spot. 1 minute. Underline this on the spot immediate medical help is called first aid. Yes. आगे पढ़े.
very often we suffer minor injuries at home,
Injuries.
which
Injuries.
injuries at home, which do not need specialist medical attention. These can be treated at home if we have knowledge of first aid. Cuts and
Stop.
bruises.
G. So, in spite of all care being taken to avoid accidents, they still do occur. Means that how much care we take to avoid accidents, even then they happen. Okay? In this world, accidents happen. Accidents occur. So often, patients which are suffering from very serious injuries, from very serious injuries are saved because they receive the immediate help, because they receive the first help from the paramedic staff, from the first aid. Okay, so they are saved because of the immediate help. Means they are given oxygen, they are given some kind of medical treatment before being taken them to the hospital. So this is called first aid. So we have to study today the topic first aid and underline the topic first aid and many other they told you about the injuries, which what kind of injuries can occur to the people and how we can cure them. So very often we like minor injuries at home. Minor injuries at home like हमें कोई भी चोट लग जाती है, खेलते हुए बच्चों को लग जाती है, तो उनके लिए हमें उन्हें हॉस्पिटल लेके नहीं जाना पड़ता, but we can just give them some attention at that time and we can cure that injury. So these can be treated at home if we have knowledge of first aid. Like we can bandage them, we can put some iodine on the injured part, on the cut part or bruise, and then we can just cover that part. Like we can bandage it, or we can use sunny plast. At sometimes if there is not very deep cut, then we can use sunny plast. So these immediate helps are called first aid, which we also give at home to our sisters, brothers, or our small children. Okay, cuts and bruises. The next paragraph is cuts and bruises. What do we mean by cuts and bruises? Okay, if a wound means zakham, like an injured part. Wound meaning zakham, injured part. If an injury is due to a minor cut or a scratch, first wash it with water. So what we have to do, first thing, we have to wash it with water. Okay, and then apply an antiseptic cream over it. So then what we have to do, the next step is to just apply cream over it, an antiseptic cream over it. This will cover the wound and prevent infection by germs. So it will stop the germs from spreading. अगर हम उसको कवर नहीं करेंगे, उस पे इन्फेक्शन किलिंग क्रीम नहीं लगाएंगे और उसको कवर नहीं करेंगे बैंडेज से, तो what will happen? That it will not heal. एक तो वो heal नहीं होगा, और and the second step is that it will spread. वो जख्म और खराब होगा, वो और फैलेगा. ठीक है? So to just stop spreading the germs, to stop avoiding the germs, we can what we can have to do, we have to apply an antiseptic cream over it, and then we have to just so that we can just prevent the germs from spreading. Okay, if the wound is deep, और अगर wound बहुत ज़्यादा जख्म जो है वो गहरा है, then press the opening to stop bleeding. Then what we can do, we can just first, like किसी का अगर सर फट गया या कुछ इस तरह से, तो we can just cover that place with some kind of a thick cloth, like कोई towel है या कोई thick cloth है, so we can just put the thick cloth over that place so that it can stop the blood from flowing, यानी कि वो ताकि blood बहे, मतलब जो blood है वो बहे ना, so it will stop the blood from flowing. So उन्होंने कहा उस चीज़ को, आप उस एरिया को, जो इंजर्ड एरिया है, अगर उसमें जो है वो बहुत ही डीप कट है, लाइक मैंने जैसे आपको बताया कोई सर फट गया है तो खून बह जा रहा है, so what we can do to stop the blood flow, we can just press that area. Okay, like press that area with some towel, with some thick cloth, so that it will stop the blood flow. Okay, so this is cuts and bruises. Open the next page. Okay, read. In case of excessive bleeding. Now, Dua, you can read now. Unmute yourself. From open page number 64. Read the first two lines. In the case of Dua, read the first two lines. In case of okay, Yashad, you can read. Unmute yourself. You can read page 64, first two lines.
In case of excessive bleeding, tie a strip.
Excessive bleeding.
Bleeding, tie a strip of cloth tightening just above the wound. This strip of cloth is called a tourniquet. This helps to slow down bleeding.
Bleeding. Okay, it's bleeding, and it's tourniquet. G. So, if in the case of excessive bleeding, like बहुत अगर ज़्यादा excess bleeding है, how we can stop that bleeding? Tie a strip of cloth tightly above the wound. Like the steps, you can look at the activity below. You can look at the activity below. As in the activity, they are tying a thick cloth, a strip of cloth tightly above the wound. So this will stop the bleeding. So this strip of cloth is called a tourniquet. अब इसके लिए कुछ steps है. इसको जो मतलब tie करने के कुछ तरीके हैं. There are some methods to tie this cloth. How we can tie that cloth? So this strip of cloth is called a tourniquet. So it helps to slow down the bleeding. So what is an activity? As you can see in the activity, demonstrate the method of making a tourniquet by following the steps given below. यानी इसको हमने इस तरीके से ये knot बना के बांधना है. हमने इस cloth को किस तरीके से बांधना है? By just making a square knot. The first step is make a loop around the limb, tie with square knot. So firstly we have to make a loop around the limb. ये जो limb है, जो भी injured wound है, injured part है, वहाँ पर सपोज जैसे यहाँ पर ये इसके जो नी है वो इंजर्ड है. तो अब ये नी पर क्या बांध रहे हैं? ही इज जस्ट टाइंग अ क्लोथ. अब वो एक उसने पहले क्या बांध दिया? एक क्लोथ. ही हैज टाइड अ क्लोथ अराउंड हिज नी. देन सेकंड स्टेप व्हाट डिड ही डू? देन व्हाट ही मेक अ लूप अराउंड द लिप. सबसे पहले उसने एक लूप बनाया. लूप में चीज को लूप मतलब इन्हीं बो बनाते हैं ना, लाइक बो, टू मेक अ बो. इस तरीके से लूप बनाना कहते हैं. Like we make a loop around the knee, tie with square knot. और फिर उसमें हमने क्या डाल दिया है? Square knot. G students, I was telling you about. I was telling you about how to tie a knot around the injured part. So what we can do? We can just make a loop around the injured part of a thick cloth, and then we can just pass a stick under the loop. The second step is that we can pass a stick under the loop. Third, tighten the tourniquet just enough to stop bleeding. Then third step, what we can do, we have to tighten the tourniquet. हमने उस tourniquet को यानी जो हमारा जो की बनी है ना, जैसे आपको इस में नजर आ रहा है. This one. This is a loop of a thick cloth. Okay, and we are passing a stick under it. नाउ टाइट, इसको हम क्या बोल रहे हैं, टॉर्निकॉइड। इस चीज को हम क्या बोलेंगे, इस जो ये हमारी ये जो टाइटन क्लॉथ है, हम इसको क्या कहेंगे, टॉर्निकॉइड। टाइटन द टॉर्निकॉइड जस्ट इनफ टू स्टॉप ब्लीडिंग। नाउ वी कैन स्टॉप ब्लीडिंग बाय टाइटनिंग इट। जितना ज्यादा हम उसको टाइट करेंगे उतना ही ज्यादा ब्लड फ्लो जो है वो stop bleeding by tightening it just enough to stop bleeding. Then wind free end of the stick to limb to keep tourniquet from unwound. उसके बाद इसके two ends है ना, अब एक end जो है उसको अगर हमने stick को जो है वो stick करके रखना है एक जगह पे, then we have to bind its free end to the other limb, means इसको एक और जगह पे हमने बांध देना है, एक और जगह हमने ऐसे ही क्लोथ बांध के टांग पे, then we can just bind it the limb to the other limb and then keep the tourniquet from unwinding। और इस तरीके से जो tourniquet है वो unwind नहीं होगा, मीन्स वो खुलेगा नहीं, वो वहीं रहेगा और इस तरीके से आप जो मतलब ब्लीडिंग है वो भी रुक जाएगी। जस्ट व्हाट यू नीड टू डू, you need to take a thick cloth and also you need to take a stick. So firstly you have to make a loop around the injured part of your body. For suppose if your hand is injured or your arm is injured, so you just have to uh, make a loop around that part and then you have to tie it with a square knot। जैसे उन्होंने आपको square knot इधर बना के दिखाई हुई कि इस तरीके से आप उसको टाइट करेंगे। Then you have to pass the stick under the loop, then tighten the tourniquet just enough to stop bleeding। Okay, we will tighten it until the bleeding is stopped। So basically this method is for to stop bleeding। bleeding को stop करने के लिए जाहिर सी बात है, अगर आपने जो है आपको कोई इंजरी हो गई और आपने हॉस्पिटल तक जाना है, तो वहाँ तक जाते जाते भी तो डिस्टेंस की वजह से भी तो मतलब कितना खून बह सकता है। सो टू स्टॉप दैट ब्लीडिंग we will apply this first aid method। ये first aid method, what is it, it is a first aid method। first we can apply this method to stop the bleeding and then last step is that bind the free end of the stick to limb to keep tourniquet from unwinding, ताकि वो खुल ना जाए, unwind ना हो जाए, इसलिए हम उसको एक और जगह से भी bind करें। Okay, read the next paragraph about, okay, what do you understand by tourniquet? First tell me. Ji Marij, you can tell me. What do we meant by uh, tourniquet?
Miss what?
Tourniquet.
Carnivores.
Tourniquet. What you are reading now, tourniquet. What are we doing it for? हमारा क्या purpose है? Why are we doing this? जी दुआ। Okay, tell me about first aid. What we have studied in the first aid. First aid में हमने क्या पढ़ा?
Miss, first aid is uh, um, some injuries are saved because the help of service. Before before we reach hospital, the immediate medical help us. It is called a first aid.
Yes, good. The immediate medical help before taking to the hospital is called first aid. Good. जी दुआ, you tell me.
Teacher,
जी।
excuse me, teacher. पेज नंबर
Yes.
6 पे जो now you know है वो मैंने नहीं किया हुआ. Now you know.
Okay, we can do at the end. Na?
Okay.
जी दुआ, what do we mean by tourniquet? What is it for? जी दुआ। Dua, try to answer questions. Okay. You will not participate, then you cannot learn. You will only learn if you participate in class. If you don't understand, then you can also ask me, teacher, I don't understand. Please repeat again. Okay, so tourniquet, we have studied that to stop excessive bleeding. Sometimes there is too much excessive bleeding due to some major injuries. So first help which we can give at home. अब हम घर पे क्या कर सकते हैं इस चीज़ के लिए? So first, the first help which we can give at home is that we can use a strip of cloth to tie the injured part. Just आपने इतना बताना है कि tourniquet क्या है? A strip of cloth which we tied around the injured part. बाकी तो उन्होंने आपको मेथड बताया है कि आप ये तो एक एक्टिविटी है. आप मुझे सिर्फ बताएं कि टोर्निक्वेट का क्या मतलब है. दैट इज द एक्टिविटी जो मैंने आपको समझाई है. ये तो एक एक्टिविटी है, ठीक है ना. दिस इज जस्ट एन एक्टिविटी. आपसे पूछा क्या जाएगा कि व्हाट इज टोर्निक्वेट. टोर्निक्वेट क्या है उसका मतलब आप बता दीजिए. टोर्निक्वेट इज अ स्ट्रिप ऑफ क्लॉथ which we bind around an injured part to stop the excessive bleeding. That is called a tourniquet. The strip of cloth is called the tourniquet to stop the excessive bleeding. तो सिंपल सी बात है, इतनी सी बात आप लोग एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर सकते. जी अब बताएं मुझे टू. नाउ टेल मी, unmute yourself and tell me what do we meant by tourniquet. Okay, Marriage, you can tell me. Ji Marriage, unmute yourself.
Yes, Miss.
What is tourniquet?
Miss, what?
What is tourniquet?
Tourniquet. Miss, tourniquet, a strip of cloth around an injured arm, like
Yes,
uh,
good. Good. A
like
strip
a
of.
like,
Yes.
when we heard we read this strip we read the strip of cloth. It is called a tourniquet.
Good. The strip of cloth which we tie around an injured part is called tourniquet. Okay. So it will stop the excessive bleeding. Okay. Now next, sprains and fractures. G. Read करें दुआ. Read the next paragraph. Sprains and fractures. Okay, Marich, you can read. You can read sprains and fractures.
Miss what?
Next
Exercise.
paragraph. Read the next paragraph. Sprains and fractures.
Sprains and fractures. Something of some things one may suffer from a sprained ankle, knee, or wrist. In case there is swelling, apply an ice pack on the injured joint. Later tie a bandage firmly around that joint. If the injured person is in extreme pain and is unable to move, he might have suffered a fracture. A fracture is a broken bone which requires immediate medical attention. Do not
Underline.
move the
Okay, underline. First, a fracture is a broken bone which requires immediate medical attention. Okay, this is the word tourniquet. How do you pronounce it? It is called tourniquet. Okay, it is not called tourniquet, it's called tourniquet. ठीक है, tourniquet, tourniquet. ठीक है, आप इसको कैसे प्रोनाउंस करोगे? टॉनिक. इसमें आपका जो लास्ट में जो आपका टी है वो भी साइलेंट है और जो आपका टी ओ यू आर आर है वो भी साइलेंट है. यू विल जस्ट से टॉनिक. ठीक है.
Okay.
ओके. स्प्रेन्स एंड फ्रैक्चर्स. समटाइम्स स्प्रेन होते हैं जिससे लाइक स्वेलिंग. समटाइम्स आर एंकल्स, नी और रिस्ट, यानी जो हमारे जॉइंट्स हैं, बेसिकली आर जॉइंट्स. Sometimes they are sprained, sometimes they suffer from a spraining, sometimes there is this swelling on these parts of our body like the ankle, knee or wrist. Sometimes these parts have swelling. So in case of the swelling, what we can do to just means to stop the swelling, so we can just apply an ice pack on the injured joint. Means हम एक ice pack यानी हम ice से उसको apply कर सकते हैं उसके ऊपर इंजर्ड जॉइंट पे, ताकि उसकी जो स्वेलिंग है, आइस जो है, इट विल रिड्यूस द स्वेलिंग. आइस विल रिड्यूस द स्वेलिंग. So it will reduce the swelling and then later we can tie a bandage firmly around that joint. बाद में हम क्या कर सकते हैं? We can tie a bandage around that joint. ठीक है. Suppose like for example our ankle is suffering from swelling, then what we can do? We can just apply ice pack. लेकिन पहले उस पे हम बर्फ like ice लगा के then we can just bind it या tie a bandage around it so that it will stop the swelling. Okay, so sometimes these are called sprains. Swellings or are called sprains. But sometimes there is more than swelling. There is not just swelling. Instead, there is some injury. Like if an injured person is in extreme pain and is unable to move, so he might have suffered from a fracture. What is a fracture? Fracture is a broken bone. Underline, a fracture is a broken bone which requires immediate medical attention. What is a fracture? Broken bone which requires immediate medical attention. जिसे फौरी तौर पर हमने जो है वो attention देनी होती है because it is a broken bone. ठीक है. So this is the difference between a sprain and a fracture. Sprain can be a sprain can be handled at home, it can be cured at home, but a fracture cannot. For if a fracture happens, then we have to go to the hospital, we have to take the medical attention, whatever the doctor says is to do. So it is because of the broken bone. Okay, it's not just a swelling. Swelling can be cured at home, but a broken bone cannot be cured at home. सो स्प्रेन्स एंड फ्रैक्चर्स में उन्होंने आपको बताया है कि जो फर्स्ट हेल्प है, अगर स्प्रेन है तो व्हाट इज द फर्स्ट हेल्प ड्यूरिंग स्प्रेन्स? दैट वी जस्ट हैव टू अप्लाई एन आइस पैक एंड देन बैंडेज. In the case of fracture, what is the first help which we have to give to the patient? Do not move the patient too much. Do not rub or twist the injured part. Take 2 flat scales or twigs. जैसे आप ये इस पिक्चर में आपकी बुक में बनी हुई है पेज नंबर 64 पे. What are they showing you? That you just use 2 flat scales or twigs. Twigs होती हैं यानी branches जो होती है ना, पतली branches, thin branches of trees. These are called the twigs. To use them as splints. हम इनको किस तरीके से यूज करेंगे? As splints. Splints means as rods. Rods की तरह हम इनको इस्तेमाल करेंगे. And place the splints on the opposite sides of the injured bone and tie them firmly with a string. फिर आप देख लो उन्होंने कैसे उसको टाई किया. This will prevent the bone from moving and getting more damage. So in that way we cannot move our arm. ये इस तरीके से हमारा ये जो lower arm आपको नजर आ रहा है ना, the person cannot move his or her lower arm. Okay, and it will prevent the bone from getting more damage. So ये first help है. और सेकेंड हेल्प जो है वो आपको हॉस्पिटल से ही मिलती है कि वो आपको इस तरीके से जो है ये लाइक जो आपको नीचे एक पर्सन नजर आ रहा है जिसकी क्लोथ एक वाइट क्लोथ उसकी गर्दन की गिर से जा रहा है. दिस इज द हेल्प विच द हॉस्पिटल गिव. ये वो अटेंशन है जो आपको हॉस्पिटल देता है और ये वो अटेंशन है जो आपको घर में मिलती है. अगर आप घर में फर्स्ट एड लेना चाह रहे हैं तो उससे उन्होंने कहा है कि यू कैन जस्ट टेक 2 twigs or 2 flat scales and you can just place them opposite to your broken part. उनके आपने ऑपोजिट उनको प्लेस कर देना है, एंड देन यू हैव टू जस्ट टाई देम, so it will prevent the bone from moving. Okay, it will prevent the arm from moving and then from getting more damaged. If an arm bone is fractured, और अगर वो fractured है, to prevent further movement and give comfort to the victim, you can also put a sling around the broken. और अगर वो फ्रैक्चर है और आपने मूवमेंट को स्टॉप करना है, तो जो डॉक्टर्स आपको मतलब फ्रैक्चर्स में वो आपके क्या करते हैं, ऐसे वो कवरिंग कर देते हैं आपकी आर्म के इर्द। ये प्लास्टर ऑफ पेरिस लगा, दे पुट प्लास्टर ऑफ पेरिस, जो एक बहुत ही स्ट्रॉन्ग मतलब मटेरियल है, और इस तरीके से वो आपके आर्म को मूव होने नहीं देते। So it will give comfort to the victim. You can also put a sling around the broken. Okay, we will continue this topic in the next lecture now. I want to ask you, have you got notes of, have you received notes?
Yes, Miss, I received.
Number 6, have you received?
Yes,
And
Miss,
what
chapter
about
6.
Dua?
Parts.
Dua, have you received the question answers of chapter number 6? Dua, unmute yourself. Ji Dua, have you received chapter 6 question answers? Dua, have you received chapter number 6 question answers? जी
टीचर, वो मैंने कहा था कि वो नाउ यू नो नहीं फील हुए थे।
Okay. Okay, we can do the now you know again. You were in the class yesterday, March. Why didn't you do it yesterday? Where were you? Okay. First is, these are quite easy. आप मुझे बता दीजिए. There is no need to follow traffic rules by riding a bicycle. True, false?
False.
False, because we have to follow traffic rules. Always try to get down from a vehicle on the side of the footpath. So true, false?
True.
True, yes, we have to step on the footpath. Always have a baby around while swimming. G. True, false? False. Okay,
False.
it's false. Use lifts to get out in case of a fire. If there is an emergency fire, so you should use lifts.
No, Miss, false.
False. Okay. Okay, but in the case if we are in home and we just got a cut from some like knife or some any sharp thing, we just got a cut. Then what can we do? How can we just like stop the bleeding, or just how can we prevent the germs from spreading? हम क्या कर सकते हैं उस केस में?
If we have germs in our homes, we sanitize our
Saying
hands.
if you just got a cut from some sharp object at home, what can you do at that time? आप उसको prevent करने के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं?
Miss, stop, drop and roll.
क्या हो गया महाराज? आई एम नॉट आस्किंग अबाउट फायर, मैं आपसे फर्स्ट एड के बारे में पूछ रही हूँ कि अभी जो आपने टॉपिक पढ़ा है, अगर आपको घर में कोई शार्प थिंग जो है वो लग जाती है, ऑब्जेक्ट लग जाता है, उस टाइम आप क्या कर सकते हैं? उसको उस शार्प ऑब्जेक्ट से जो कट है, उस कट पे आप क्या लगा सकते हैं? व्हाट कैन यू अप्लाई?
Miss, I apply tourniquet, some bandage, iodine, and
इफ इट इज अ सिंपल टॉनिकल जो है वो तो हम एक्सेसिव ब्लीडिंग के केस में, in the case of just simple cuts or bruises, we just put antiseptic creams over it to prevent the infection from spreading. समझ में आई? Just we put an antiseptic cream over the cut part to prevent the infections from spreading. ठीक है? Okay, Dua, tell me what can we do in the case of excessive bleeding? What kind of method we can use? Unmute yourself. G. What kind of method we can use in case of excessive bleeding? Students, you have to participate in class. If you do not speak, then how would I know that what you are getting or what you are not? मुझे क्या पता लगेगा? आप तो कुछ बताती ही नहीं है कि मुझे कुछ समझ लगे कि आपको क्या समझ आ रहा है क्या नहीं आ रहा. I am repeating the question. Okay, Marich, you can answer if you are or not. Okay. What we can do in the case of excessive bleeding? Which method is applied in the case of excessive bleeding? G. Marich. Students, you can just...
In
Yes.
case of excessive bleeding, tie a tourniquet
Yes,
and
tie tourniquet. Tourniquet. Okay, tourniquet.
and apply an antiseptic.
Just don't need to apply antiseptic in that case. We just need to bind the injured portion with a thick cloth, or which is also called a tourniquet. So it will help to stop the bleeding. So the method is given below, that how you can apply the tourniquet in case of excessive bleeding. Okay. So what you can do in the case of fracture? What is a fracture? Okay, tell me what is a fracture.
And a fracture is a broken bone.
Yes, a fracture is a broken bone. So what can you do? What kind of immediate help you can give?